Welcome and thank you for joining us in today's discussion on technology and immersive collaboration in higher education. I'm Justine Hunter with Panasonic Connect, and I'm excited to explore Panasonic Connect's approach to the industry and its evolution. As today's learning environments continues to evolve, there is an emphasis on the need for more flexible, interactive, and immersive technology. Information sharing and collaboration remain essential to creating productive and engaging learning scenarios, and whether it's in a remote or in-person setting, technology is playing a vital role. Panasonic Connect is working together with industry and education experts to optimize learning experiences and to provide technology solutions that fully engage students and help to ensure positive learning outcomes. Here today are three industry and education experts who will share their insights and more information on how technology and collaboration are helping to shape next generation learning environments. With me are Carrie Head, CEO of Igloo Vision, Erin Moran, Chair of the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance, also known as HETMA, and Petro Shimanishi, Director of the Visual Systems Product Management Group here at Panasonic Connect. Welcome all, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump right in. In the last several years, there's been this rapid advancement in technology that has really helped to create, or transform rather, immersive experiences. And Carrie, Igloo Vision has been creating shared immersive spaces for over a decade. How do you think this technological evolution has really impacted immersive experiences?
I think what's happened is there's a greater expectation around how we're going to use technology in the classrooms. I think you've got another generation of customers and students coming up through the ranks, and I shouldn't call them customers, but in some ways, they are, and they want to go to a college or a university to get a decent education. They're actually paying for that education, so they expect to be using the latest innovative tools they might then actually go on and use in the workplace. And so immersive, innovative spaces are kind of bringing all the digital experiences they've had maybe growing up through get their gaming experiences or what they're seeing online, and it's really bringing together all those different types of content and engaging them in education. So that's how I see it kind of evolving.
Absolutely. So with the rise of immersive learning environments, Erin, what do you think are some of the key drivers behind the growing trends of immersive spaces in higher education?
Well, I think Ben Franklin once said something to the effect of, tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll learn. And I think that really speaks to immersive experiences now, and the students being able to be in the moment to learning. They're kind of being taken somewhat out of the classroom and being put into situations that they'll be able to grasp onto a little bit more and remember so much more than just sitting in a chair being talked to. And with these students, they are digital natives. They grew up with a device in their hands. So we need to kind of up the ante a little bit and give them that experience notched up a bit.
Absolutely. So speaking of upping the ante, let's talk tech, Petro. So what partnerships or collaborations, when we think about hardware, software, IT, and content teams, what are some of the partnerships and collaborations that are really needed or essential for creating a successful immersive space?
Well, I think we've got some of the people here actually on this panel, but obviously, good hardware has to be supported with good software, and good software like Igloo's immersive software really needs to be able to have the chance to shine. So you need to have very good hardware that can support 4K resolution, either natively or upscaling it. For example, Panasonic has a technology called Quad Pixel Drive, which delivers a 4K resolution upscaled from a 2K source. And that's so important in education because a lot of the content in education is not yet 4K. Then, of course, there's the IT infrastructure. You need to be able to have a very robust IT infrastructure to pull off an immersive space, especially if you're doing hybrid learning environments or if you're trying to pull down content from the cloud. So it's really important to have a symbiotic partnership with all three disciplines.
Yeah. And so you mentioned software. Carrie, how does software contribute to creating dynamic and interactive, immersive environments in higher education spaces?
Well, I think the software is kind of fundamental in actually providing a platform for the content. And that's what we're all about, is a platform. So it depends on the different types of digital content you might want to be showing. For example, you might want to be taking children on a field trip to a construction site. So you want to be able to show them what that construction site looks like. It might just be 360 footage filmed on a basic camera. Or it could be a simulated environment of what a future city might look like. And that software can bring to life that experience. It can immerse people, and also it can take people on a journey, a journey through ancient Rome, for example, or it could be in what's it like to work in a heavy manufacturing organization, what's it like to be on an oil rig, all those different contexts you can actually transport the children to using software, as opposed to actually having to take them on a field trip, which might be time-consuming, dangerous, expensive. So you actually get those benefits by bringing the outside world into the classroom using software.
Yeah. So, Erin, what are some of the emerging technologies that you're seeing that have the most or the greatest potential to have an impact on immersive learning spaces?
Oh, wow. I think that I think AI is going to be one of the things that has probably one of the largest impacts, especially when it comes to us helping create that content. I mean, that's really where I think a lot of the faculty seem to be the most afraid of. They have these great ideas, but how do they turn those ideas into a reality through the content? And also trying to keep it like relatively quick, and that not that they have to send it out to a designer and have all of these things realized and take hours upon hours to create. Using AI images and whatnot, it will become a lot easier for them to at least come up with a concept that then a designer can take and really fully flesh out. I'm definitely not advocating that AI take over designers' spot, because there's definitely, that is not at all what I see happening. I think that it's just a really good starting point to bring some of these things to life and then edit to the point where it's usable in the way they want. But I think not only that, but technology that can, like Carrie was saying, allow the experience to be brought from the outside in. I could definitely, with medical applications, engineering, even to like forensic type things, being able to recreate certain scenes. And for education, I feel like that's going to be like really valuable.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about that. What is the process for designing content specifically for immersive spaces, and how does it differ from traditional media productions?
With the Igloo software, it's really about putting the teachers or the lecturers in control of creating the content. So it's really about what kind of content do they want to bring, what's the session all about. And our software allows you to bring in, it can be 360 imagery, but it can also be your PowerPoint slides. It can be your web links. You might have particular web-based content that you want to interact with your children on. Question and answer sessions where you've got a particular interface that everyone can log into, and you can see on the screen when people give different responses to questions. It's all about, it's not that high-end production values. It's much more around what content are you already using and how can you bring that into the classroom and bring it to life. It can be something as simple as just a panoramic photograph, a still of what's like at the top of a mountain. That has been super powerful, just to kind of bring in a calmness to the space, get people interested in like geology, you know, what's going on, what's this rock formation, what's happening here. You know, it brings the creativity and imagination of the teachers, actually brings a single picture to life. And it's absolutely fascinating when you see the teachers in action in our immersive spaces. I love it. It brings me chills because the children are so engaged and they're like, wow, we're sitting on top of a mountain. Yeah. It's awful, and they want to take selfies. I mean, it's great. It's tying into what's relevant for the children, so that then, you know, they like, oh, this is new technology, cool. It gets them excited. So yeah. And me too.
Well, I agree with Igloo's platform. You can really do anything, and that can scale from something very simple like a PowerPoint or a PDF, all the way up to a full 3D rendering created on Unreal. All of that can be supported with Igloo software. Yeah. So Igloo has a really powerful engine that, you know, the very novice professor can take all the way up to somebody who's got some really sophisticated content creation skills. Mm-hmm. And of course, from that, you want to make sure that you have the best video technology to be able to maximize that content. And we're definitely here to help.
Absolutely. So Petra, Panasonic Connect has recently announced the capital partnership with Oryx Corporation. With these advancements and with all of these changes in the industry, how will this impact your offerings to the immersive learning experience?
Well, that's a really good question. And it is still very early days, but we're very excited about this new capital partnership that Panasonic has with Oryx for visual systems. We believe that this partnership is going to lead to more investment in R&D so we can accelerate our development of several different technologies. But there's one thing that I wanted to comment on as I was listening to the conversation. For people that are watching this webinar, you know, if you're thinking about immersive, and in fact, if in Google, if you put the word immersive in, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come up with an AR or a VR headset. This is not what we're talking about here. In fact, we have found, our research has found, and it's actually been proven based on some technological announcements that have been made even as early as this week, that virtual reality headsets are great for an individualized experience. But when you're trying to educate people, you want to make sure that you have this community. And as soon as you're blocking out the communication senses, the ability to see, the ability to hear, you lose that interaction, you lose that very important interchange and dialogue between the students and the instructor. So we're not very bullish on those headsets at this point. What we're talking about is making the full room immersive. This means multiple projectors, multiple screens, backed by Igloo software, great content. This is the picture that we're really trying to paint here. And our partnership with Oryx is going to help us accelerate some of the ancillary technologies that we think can better broaden out that experience so that it can be a better shared experience. Of course, combined with our partnership with Igloo and HETMA, it's very important for the overall industry.
So Carrie, I want to elaborate a little bit more about, you know, why a single screen is a bit different from that immersive learning environment. How does that create a different experience for students in the classroom?
Yeah, so basically initially when children or students first come into the room, there is definitely that wow factor because they come in and they're surrounded by images and information, and it certainly kind of engages all of your senses. You're far more likely to be looking at what's going on around you. You're far more likely to interact with your classmates and your fellow students because it's something new that you haven't used before. It's not isolated sitting at your desk. Generally the way that the rooms are set up is slightly different. It's a bit more informal, probably. Sometimes people put bean bags on the floor, and they just get a totally different. It's a different physical reaction to the room. Also, you know, you're not just directing. Oh, I'm only going to look at this one screen here. It's like, what else is going on? What else could I be learning? So, For example, we've had people transported to, okay, let's use Google Earth and take people to a desert environment. What else is going on in that desert? And you can look around and you can go, okay, I can see some mountain ranges there, and then it's a bit like, okay, where's the source? Are there any sources of water? What else is going on? What are the geological formations? There's a lot more going on in an immersive space than just looking at a single screen, and it's very engaging. You also find that people, and I know students probably aren't allowed to take their phones into their lectures, but you do find that people are not playing with their phones because there's so much going on around them that they don't play with their phones. Another thing that I had actually thought is when you go into the immersive room, it's typically slightly different to your normal classroom. So you might actually be interacting with different people and having and breaking down some of those barriers even within the classrooms, where you might have cliques. I'm thinking you're sitting by different people and having different conversations than you would if you were just sitting in the same seat you've always sat in, looking at the teacher straight ahead of you. So I think it's a very different physical space.
Yeah.
I think the one demo that I liked that really caught my attention that Igloo did at our booth at Infocom, you had some 3D content of the London National Museum of History.
Oh yes, and you can go
and that
navigate
was
around.
amazing because you walk in this room
yeah.
and you're immediately in the museum.
Yes.
And you look at one side and you can see this giant skeleton of a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And you look at the other side and there are other exhibits here and other exhibits there. And I haven't left the facility, but yet it feels like I am really in the London National Museum of History.
Yeah.
Now that's completely different experience from a teacher standing up there at the front of the class going, let me tell you about the London National Museum of History. The London National Museum of History was established in blah, 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 blah. Nobody's going to remember half of that stuff. But when they get transported to that area and they're looking around the room and they're experiencing it, the retention rate has got to skyrocket.
Yes.
It certainly did with me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Erin, how can higher education institutions stay ahead of the curve when it comes to adopting and implementing new immersive technologies?
As with any sort of technology in higher ed, it really is a lot of times it needs to be partially student-driven, and that the students need to kind of advocate for the type of learning that they want. They, kind of vote with your admissions, essentially. Like if you're visiting a university and you're not seeing the type of technology that you're expecting, don't apply. Because, or just, that really is, that's the only way usually, a lot of times, that the message will get through. Like the dollars speak for universities. But I also would say that the instructors have to really adopt a new mindset. There are some instructors that have been teaching the same exact way for the last 20, 30 plus years. And it's kind of about time that they learn something new and change the way that they're approaching things. And it really helps teams like mine to justify putting in this technology into classrooms if we have some faculty that champion it. That the ones who are like, I am going to commit to readjusting my curriculum so that I can teach in multi-dimensions instead of just one way. And this sort of immersive learning is so great because it kind of brings added dimension to the classroom. It's now when coming up with your presentations, you don't have to think in just a 2D box. You can think in a third dimension. You can even go so far as to add scent to really bring the class into a new space. But it really a lot of times does come down to those early adopters and them advocating for it, the students asking for it, and engaging with the multimedia team on the campus to really just make this all come to life.
So you mentioned retention rate. Erin, how do we measure success? What does success look like in these spaces?
success, I feel like, would be measured in their grades. I feel like it'll help bring them more into the experience, and they'll just learn a lot better. And I think we'll definitely find out through the students always have to rate the class and their instructors. And I have a feeling that any instructor that's going to be using these sorts of methods to teach their courses are definitely going to have better scores, and they're going to rate those classes that much better. But I think through I know, like my team, we send out a semester, like end of the semester survey, finding out from, we do 2 separate ones tailored different ways, one to faculty to see how their classroom, like, well, how they feel about their classrooms and things like that. And then we also send one to the students. And I am sure that anyone that would take a class in an immersive classroom their comments, I feel, would be a lot different than those who are in an auditorium with a sage on a stage.
And I will say that as an first-time instructor, it is very challenging to make sure that you can keep their attention, especially when you're teaching a remote class. So I would definitely love, love, love to be able to teach in a room like this, because I think that the retention would be better, the experience for the students would be better, and frankly, I think some of their grades would be better. You know who I'm talking to, and maybe your review of me might be better. Oops.
Well, and I think also from a teaching standpoint, I bet these students would be a lot more curious about the subject matter, because it's going to involve different parts of their brain. So they're really going to want to deep dive into things a little bit more, even after maybe the lecture's done.
Yeah, I mean, from a demographic standpoint, and Carrie, you said it perfect. You know, we're just, in the next 4 years, we're going to be transitioning from Gen Z to Gen Alpha. And these are your really true digital natives. I mean, these people have grown up with tech from kindergarten onward. I mean, there are some students that are in high school right now that grew up with an Apple Watch, playing with their iPhone, playing with their father's Xbox. So the expectations of the environment that they're going to enter into, especially in a higher education environment where you're spending money on furthering your own education, it's going to be sky high for that experience. And with the software combined with the hardware, I think we can deliver something really, really great.
My son is a junior in high school, and he's one of those kids that grew up. We had a first-gen iPad, which still works, by the way. It's a tank. All of the iPad minis we've had in the middle are now trashed and crushed and broken, but that first-gen iPad made it. But these are the things that we're starting to think about as he's approaching the time where he's selecting what schools he's going to. And so it's interesting having these conversations and then going, oh, I do need to think about these things myself personally, because my son is now going to be selecting a school, and I would hope that any school that he would want to attend would have these sorts of classrooms and the instructors that would, be willing to teach in this sort of mode.
Yeah, and I think it's also not only for higher education students, but also continuing education. There's plenty of opportunity for students that are looking at PhD or doctorate degrees to be able to learn in an immersive environment as well. So this can scale from K-12 all the way up to PhD, or even if you're going back to school to study something new. I know I could certainly use it.
Oh, I know. The classes coursework that I've been doing for engineering management for my master's, we had actually talked about the concept of a digital twin for manufacturing, and it would be amazing to actually be able to be in a classroom and have a digital twin that we actually are learning the ins and outs of, as opposed to just kind of talking about it in concept.
Yeah. And I mean, the igloo rooms do get used to present digital twins, but that's much more in our engineering space. But yeah, the Internet of Things, where you're looking at data around sensors on buildings and building management. I mean, those are all, things that, if you're learning those kind of courses, it's obviously perfect, to look at it in an immersive room, because there are those more technical, as you were talking about, the Unreal content and Unity, where you can actually move around, you can actually build models of the infrastructure and do deep engineering. Those things you can do already, and people are. Some of the recent installations that I've seen have been particularly around upskilling people, around the 16 to 18-year-olds, thinking about what skills shortage have we got in the economy. Things like healthcare, construction. It's even things like farming. It's quite incredible the many uses are actually the immersive spaces, because you can keep changing the background. So what I've seen recently is doing simulation for, let's say, healthcare. So simulating what it's like going into an apartment where it's a very deprived area and there might be some high risk things that you need to be alert to. How can you move around safely into these areas where people desperately need some health and health care, and they need people to be unafraid to go in there, but also the healthcare workers need to be protected as well. So it's like simulating those environments and going in there and doing these virtual tours of these apartment buildings before you actually go and face the real world. So that's very much, I've seen that going on. We've done some installations, University of Texas, we've done like the nursing, rural nursing, trying to get that outreach of like, how do you get healthcare, upskill people to do that healthcare, but also make them safe and comfortable with the environments they're going to be going into. Then construction sites, particularly where it's a new type of construction, for example, hydrogen energy, it's new, it's high risk, is making sure that people are trained and know what to expect when they're going into these environments. It's doing, your basic health and safety, it's being spatially aware, it's the whole thing about languages is actually super important, because if you're going into specialist fields, you might very well expect the specialist might not be speaking the same language as you, so it's great to have that visual as well, that's actually cementing the idea of like, okay, that's a high risk there, or that's a valve I need to keep away from, that's going to be hot there, I better not step on that. Those kind of things, are really, impactful in the learning environment. I mean, the farming one I found quite funny. You were talking about scent. And we were like, why do you want scent in this college? And the teacher was like, well, I want to have farmyard smells, because kids don't know what farms smell like, and they might be a little bit overwhelmed. And it's all about getting people used to the environment that they're going to be going into. He also wanted the smell of what's it like in an engineering firm, because he said, because it's a very deep smell of the oil, and so that people don't get overwhelmed. Same with what does it smell like in a hospital? Yeah. It's all of those things to make it super realistic, so that people are prepared when they go into the actual world. They're kind of mentally prepared, because your neurons and whatever don't necessarily know the difference between reality and simulation, so you kind of get a bit more comfortable first. So I've seen a lot of I could go on about all these different ones. I mean, I've seen some great natural history ones where people are taking amazing photographs and getting them blown up, and then starting to animate them. There's so much you can do in these immersive spaces. So yeah.
And with that, from a K through 12 perspective,
sorry, yes,
what are
yeah,
no?
Yeah.
From a K through 12 perspective, what are these students expecting as they look towards going into high school, college, grad school, and as you said, into the real world?
Yeah, well, I think it is that, like, how am I, it's about employability, isn't it? It's like, fine, I've got my education, I know my basic, I think digital literacy is actually part of the curriculum now, as I understand it. It's like reading, writing and arithmetic and digital literacy. So they're going to, they're going to be trained in that digital literacy in K through 12. And then it's like, right, how do they advance it? Because you've got to be thinking about what skills. I've talked about some of the more fundamental skills and jobs that are out there, but then there's also like, okay, I want to be, what's the next generation? I don't know. I want to be a coder, or I want to be, creating simulated environments for what happens, with climate change or flood disasters or someone that's it's like they want to be able to actually use these tools to actually simulate tools that we're actually going to really need for our future. They're going to be, looking at training in energy, the energy evolution we've talked about. And I know I've mentioned the hydrogen plants. It's all about, what's the next technology? What are the things that we all need? What are going to be the jobs in the future? And how do we prepare students for the job market? Because it's not the traditional jobs that I've grown up with, like being an accountant. I mean, AI is going to take that, or all the basic bureaucratic jobs will all get taken over by AI probably. So it's like, what else? What are us humans going to be doing to make a living?
Doing tech support on robots.
Yeah. But has that answered it? Because the thing is, what I wanted to talk about a little bit was like the things like the remote campus visits. Yeah, the virtual site tours. So you can get the students used to, because it's actually quite overwhelming going to a university for the first time, even if you've been there with your parents.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's actually quite a nice orienteering kind of. You could do, and look, that's inexpensive to do. The university can just take a 360, walk around a bit, and then they can fire that out to all the K through 12s or whatever, I don't know what age group it is, but you can send that out to them and they can get comfortable with this is a campus you're going to be on, and they can do their own tour, and get really, used to it. Oh, where's the student union? Where are the toilets? Where's the this? Where's the canteen? I don't know if they have student unions. Do they here?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they do, yeah. So, yeah.
So I want to ask this question to each of you. What are you excited about when you think about the future of these immersive, collaborative learning experiences?
I'm excited about engaging with students that maybe the traditional way of learning has not worked for them, and they may have been excluded and maybe have doubts about their own abilities because the traditional way of learning hasn't worked for them. I want them to be empowered and be like, I get this, I'm a visual learner, or I love coding, I love gaming, and I can really get stuck into my education and I can progress. That's what I really want, is for people that maybe the traditional ways of learning has not worked for them, and this is a great tool for them to be engaged.
Yeah. Absolutely. What she said. No, I'm really excited about the possibilities, about what faculty and what the students are going to do with this once they get into it. Like all of the different classes that they could come up with, and I'm like just sitting here with you naming some of the different things that are that you've seen done. I'm like, oh yeah, so with history or like Latin, you could just sit in the middle of the Colosseum, and there's just so many possibilities, and that is just, it's very exciting to think about like what people are going to come up with, because like right now we envision kind of what we can see on the fringes, but as it goes, it's going to spiral out and it's going to be amazing.
And Petra?
I am totally psyched about the ability to simulate and learn anything, anytime, anywhere. I think that's the broader vision of this virtual, the full immersive environment. Imagine, if you will, every city having immersive rooms where you can walk in and learn anything you wanted to with a digital library. I think the immersive spaces could really take over the community library of the future. Education in our lifetime doesn't stop when you graduate college. And with the proliferation of artificial intelligence, we're going to have to continue to keep learning, to keep evolving, to keep growing as humans. Even if we get to 70 years old, I mean, I know a couple of 70-year-old people that are going back to college right now to learn new things. But imagine if you could just walk into your community library, touch something on the touchscreen and say, today I want to learn about this. Today I want to simulate this. And have a digital library of classes and environments taught by the very best instructors in the language of your choice worldwide. And if you were able to share that experience over a network with other people that are sitting in similar immersive rooms, then you really have a full immersive community collaboration learning experience. And that's where I think the future is going to take us. We're just starting to scratch the surface with some of the technologies that Igloo and Panasonic and other companies are bringing to the table. What is going to come is going to be very exciting and compelling. And we have a lot of library space that we can use too. So that's a pretty good idea.
I love the libraries. We've done one in White Plains. Yeah.
Oh, it's just up the road.
Yeah, I know. Libraries, I totally get that, because especially for the older generation that maybe feel isolated and left behind, it's like, right, okay, how do we push that forward? No, I think it's great, because we do want it to be for every generation, actually.
Yeah.
And that's the point, is making it as easy to use, as reliable and as robust as possible, so any generation can use it.
And you know, we've tried it with AR glasses and, you know, virtual reality glasses, but that's really an individualized experience. And frankly, depending on where you're trying to simulate, if you've got something that's really active, like an interactive game, it could be a little bit dangerous. You know, I have a friend that actually fell down the stairs wearing a pair of virtual reality glasses because they completely lost the perception of where they were in their environment. So that's one reason to take the individualization of the immersive experience and broaden it out. But the more compelling reason is communication. You know, we're social beings. We've got to be able to communicate and learn from each other. And individualized learning is great, but if you can expand that experience to community centers where people are coming together to learn about the same thing, then that invents a dialogue and new ideas come just from that communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see a very, very great future for immersive experiences.
You know, and I feel like that would be a great use of old shopping malls.
Yes.
Yes,
I
turning
agree.
old shopping malls
absolutely.
into...
Yeah, it is reimagining that retail space. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah.
Or Gen X nursing homes, old shopping malls.
So as we wrap up, I want to ask this question, looking toward the future to each of you. How do you envision immersive learning spaces changing the landscape of education in the next 5 to 10 years? We can start with you, Carrie.
Yeah, I mean, I see more adoption of it, obviously. I think we've got to think about the processing power of our computing technology, the GPUs, how we're going to make it even more photorealistic, how we can actually get students even more engaged, you know, what other different types of content might they be using this kind of immersive space for, because we've seen it being adopted within nursing environments, we've seen it in fire safety training. We've seen it in, like, how do you do health and safety on the construction site? So I see that being adopted more and more, and it will start to get quite creative, I think. It's like, how do you use it in your art department, you know, where you're actually creating digital art? You can do that in the immersive spaces. The gaming departments already are adopting it, because it's like, how do you create digital characters, and how do you show them off to your classmates and to your lecturers? How do you get it? So I just think that there's a lot going on there, and I think there's a lot to do with processing power. I think AI definitely will have an impact. And it's whether, you know, that interaction, so that actually education might be a little bit more tailored to the individual if you can use AI in the right way, particularly where you've got multi-language is actually quite an issue in quite a lot of big cities, where you assume, you know, in the UK, for example, you assume everyone's speaking English, but of course they're not. You know, there's lots of different languages, and so you need those tools, and you haven't got 20 different teachers to speak 20 different languages, so you might be able to use AI to actually do that interpretation and give people a better learning outcome. So I think that's using AI and technology for the benefit of the children and the students. I think it's the journey we're on.
Erin?
Yeah, I think that really soon we're going to be able to customize learning plans for students and be able to really make the experiences more appropriate for the students' levels, any sort of the learning type that they do. Some people are more auditory, some more visual. So being able to take that sort of data from the student population and turn that into a better learning experience, I think that, you know, will improve student outcomes, and as well as just make learning a lot more engaging, and the students will get so much more out of it.
Can I add one more point, though? I think also the teaching and the teaching faculty, as they come up through the ranks, they're much more comfortable with technology. So they're just going to expect to be teaching in a different way. So that's what I also think in 10 years' time, the teachers will be a different generation and they will expect new tools to match that. So.
Very true.
Well, I would say from a technology standpoint, we're living in a very exciting time. You know, we're just at the very beginning of what generative AI can do for people in terms of their environment and education itself. In relation to higher education, we do have oftentimes still, even in a post-COVID world, the challenge of making sure that students that have other competing priorities the challenge of keeping them engaged within the class. So I think in the future, we're probably are going to see somewhat of an integration of a student remote integrated into an immersive room and given somewhat of a remote headset. We're also going to see more augmented reality. I think the third dimension, or there's going to be a fourth dimension in the immersive classroom, and that's going to be more augmented reality, bringing in these 3D models, being able to rotate them, change them, adjust them. And then, of course, as you guys mentioned already, personalization. We're already there with those real-time translation headsets. I mean, boy, I definitely got a chuckle out of what I heard this one guy talking about me at the airport, because he didn't think I could hear what he was saying, but I had my translation headsets in, so yes, I did. But we're already there, and it's just going to get even crazier. The idea of being able to personalize and really tailor a collaborative and entertaining educational experience individually is going to be really going to be a game changer for education.
For sure. So, in accessibility, you kind of
Yes.
were reaching that, I think, with that. It sounds like it's kind of a buzzword currently, like accessibility and making, but it's really fundamentally is something like everybody should be able to have access to the same things and be able to have the same experiences. And so using these technologies, that it's bringing it to everybody. And like what you said about the mountain scene, like someone who is differently abled may not be able to make it up a mountain, but to give them an experience that is so close that it's just can be so magical.
Yeah.
The real question is, are students going to start sending avatars to class instead of themselves?
If only. Well, we can talk about this all day, but thank you all so much for sharing your insights. Undoubtedly, when educators are armed with the right high-performance technology, they are able to create lectures and lessons that provide rich learning experiences. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are interested in learning more about immersive collaboration environments, definitely check out our website.